Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Conway Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. I have a big story coming out on Thursday ahead of the game against the Eagles on Dan Quinn and a lot of the changes that he made and what it was like for him after the firing in Atlanta and how it's improved him as a coach for Washington. So check that out on ESPN.com on Thursday. Also, as you see, Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, is here with me. And I appreciate those of you who stuck around, and I apologize for starting a little bit late, but it's a long day, and I forgot my mic at the facility, Bram, and I had to go back and get it, or, there we are. Anyways, so let's look. So
we're late. You're late, John. I'm in a compacted week here. You're late.
I know I am, and I'm a little bit harried. And I was going pretty damn fast on the toll road and on the Route 7 going out to Berryville. I was doing some speed records, so I am good. So here we are, Bram. Here we are. So by the way, so let's get right to this. I want to get to, before we start talking about the game and some other things, some injury updates, because as Brennan says, he said, need Brian Robinson this week. Well, we talked to Brian Robinson for a few minutes today, and he said that he feels great about his chances for playing Thursday. Now, we all know that athletes oftentimes say that, but what I've seen with Brian Robinson is we've talked to him during the week, he typically is playing that week. When it doesn't seem like he's going to play, he's not really available. So he said he feels really good about it. Andrew Wiley said he was very close to playing on Sunday. I think you and I both watched him work out and both came away with the thought that he wasn't going to play on Sunday. So, but he felt he was close. Don't know yet for his status for Thursday, but he seemed to feel pretty good, but he was more non-committal than Robinson was. I think he was just kind of being more, even about it, but Robinson seemed to be pretty upbeat about his chances. So that would be a big boost for Washington for sure. So
yeah, 100%.
So let's talk about this game because it's such a quick turnaround. I will start looking at the Eagles and then go back a little bit on some thoughts on Pittsburgh. But how do you take this game? Because we talked earlier today. This is a tough week for them to face this team. And it's not to provide excuses for them, but Bram, that's the reality. This is a tough situation for them to go into.
It's not who you play; it's when you play them.
Yeah,
they're red hot. They're killing it right now. Since week 6, scoring defense best in the league. Scoring defense. Okay, everyone sees Saquon Barkley doing all the stuff he's doing. Jalen Hurts is doing things that no quarterback's ever done, like 2+ touchdown or 10+ rushing touchdowns 4 years now. No other quarterback's ever done that. Like he's scoring at a clip that's ridiculous. We see the things Saquon's doing. AJ Brown's been a nightmare. But on defense, since week 6, total defense, number 82 point differential, plus 82 since that point in time. Number 1 scoring defense in the league. Defense, right? So they're catching this team at the wrong time. They're surging for sure. Haven't lost since their bye week, 5 in a row. They've been here before numerous times, 7-2, 3 years in a row. They've been at least 7-2. So this is nothing new to them. And the reality is, like, Washington is beat up in some of the wrong spots. So I point out the defense first because Wiley, we'll see if he goes. Hopefully he does. They could use him. Lucas, I think, would be a big deal. They can get him to come back. That would be really great if they could have him back and available to them because Brandon Coleman is dealing with other stuff. We saw Tyler Biadasz go in and out of the lineup. B-Rob may or may not play. This offense is beat up. They need a bye week really, really badly. And it's just not a good setup. Like, they're taking on a team that is surging. It's doing really well on both sides of the ball. Short week in their stadium. And it's not that I don't think Washington can win. I do. I'm completely convinced they do. But the problem is it's not who you play. It's when you play them. And now Washington is very beat up, and they're going to have to figure it out against a defense that's really coming on here.
But you know what I like, Bram? And you're right. And as someone else said, like, first of all, 3 straight years of a December bye is complete nonsense. Like that, it's going when I remember like one of the things you check when the schedule comes out for for obviously for their sake, but also for ours. Like when do we get the bye too? I'm like, well, there's no way this year they're going to have them as a December bye, and then it was. But you play, as one thing I like is how Dan Quinn embraces whatever the situation is, because that's all you can do. And like while he gets asked about like, oh, what do you think about having a December bye? And the reality is it sucks. However, you make the best of it when you get it. So for him, it's like, well, when you get there, it'll be really good. And they will get the extra weekend off because of this Thursday game, which is it's considered a de facto bye, except you have to play 2 games in 4 days. But I just like how he embraces it. And as he was telling us, first of all, and I agree with him on this, like this is a tough-minded team. So if there's a team that can go out there and compete in this situation, they're going to play hard, they're going to play tough. That. And, as he said, like if the game were Wednesday, they'd be ready for that. So that's all good, but it is a tough situation. And here's the other thing. And it's funny. I was on a Philly radio station earlier today, Bram, and they're like, was this a must-win game for Washington? I said, no, I don't think it is. You want to win. As Herm Edwards says, you play to win the game, right? We all know that. However, they have a good schedule coming up, and they'll get reinforcements, whether Robinson plays this week or Dallas. Marshawn Lattimore will be out there soon. I think that, to me, is such a big signing. Like if they didn't get him, then I would look at that Pittsburgh game even differently because of what it portends for the future in the secondary, but they do. So anyways, I think regardless of what happens, they're in a good spot.
Definitely. I mean, that's assuming that they do what they've been doing, which is beat teams with bad records this year, which is what they've done regularly this season. Because on the other side of this game is Dallas and Tennessee. Both are under 500 teams. Dallas is spiraling. I don't count any chickens with them because on both sides of this rivalry, we've just seen a million times when you least expect it. But, the schedule's very favorable. They'll get a bye. They'll hit another under 500 team after the bye. I know it's a road game. And then they'll have another shot at Philadelphia. And in the meantime, the Eagles haven't played Pittsburgh or Baltimore yet. One of those games is on the road. So everything's on the table regardless of what happens. But I will say this, for this week, they pull this off. This is going to be an extraordinarily telling thing about this team because it is very set up for all the reasons we've already kind of described here. It's very much set up that they're in trouble. Like this is just the wrong place, wrong time, wrong team. It doesn't mean they can't win because they had these same injuries a few days ago and woulda, coulda, shoulda, 8 million different reasons, if you really want to go through it, why they could have won against them too and lost by a point. And it was by far their worst game of execution that I've seen the entire year and nearly beat a 7-2 team anyway. So I put nothing past them. I just hate the setup. And I agree with you. Like there's no sky falling here, even if they lose on Thursday night. It is all right in front of them. They're going to get to play them again. The Eagles' schedule is harder in the short term than Washington's is. So, I think everybody needs to stay calm, cool, collected, no matter what happens on Thursday. But if they pull off a win, well, that's good. That is going to be something if they actually knock them off.
Right. And you know what this feels like, Bram, is like a tough back-to-back in basketball, in the NBA, where you get like 2 really good teams back-to-back. And it's like, hey, it's a tough one. You try to get one of them. And I will say this, I wouldn't put it past them to see them win. Like I think I think this is a good team. So I don't think it's not a foregone conclusion that they can. It's just that it's up against it. And you're right. Like one of the things I took away from Pittsburgh, I think I would have felt differently if like the Steelers didn't always look great. I think Washington had a lot to do with that. I don't think clearly if Washington had played its best game and that was the best they could do, I'd say, I came away from that thinking like, and Pittsburgh could have said the same thing if they had lost, but 1 or 2 plays and they win.
That's right. This is a really interesting one to kind of think about, especially in rewatching it and like going over it like we do. This clearly could have gone either way. What was really interesting about it was, I guess we're just so accustomed. The reason why the record is what it is, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons is, Jaden's way ahead of the curve. I mean, that goes without saying. And we've talked about him for, weeks and months now about just how ridiculous of a season he's having as a rookie quarterback. But their execution, and I'll give Cliff credit and Dan Quinn credit and the players credit for buying in. This is a very new team with a very new offense. And the way they've executed it has been, I can't believe it. I mean, that's the other part of this. Like, Jaden's been getting so much credit, but if you just go watch them on film, the way they execute week to week to week, it's stunning considering how many new players are there, how up-tempo they go most of the time. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
This was the first one where you actually saw a good amount of missed assignments. You saw guys get beat off the edge. You saw drops. You saw plays where I don't know who was supposed to catch the ball, Diami or McLaurin. Not sure. There were moments like this that were unusual, and I haven't seen a lot of it. So, yeah, and even after all that, they lost by a point. And you could, point to all these extraordinary missed opportunities. The pass to McCaffrey that might have changed the drive. The drop by Ertz that might have changed the drive. They twice got the ball early in the second half at midfield or better and ended up with 3 points. A missed pass to Olamide Zaccheaus. The drop by Ertz. The fourth quarter drive with McCaffrey that if that's a little closer. So there were all these crazy missed opportunities. They also didn't execute particularly well. It was by far their worst offensive performance of the year, not close. It was by far Jaden's worst completion percentage, not close. It was by far their worst rushing day, not close. And they still scored 27 on the number 2 scoring defense in the league. And if got a different spot, might have won anyway. I don't know how to think about it. That was not a very well played game by them, by their standards at all. And they almost won anyway.
Yeah, no, and that's how I took it too. And it's funny because Pittsburgh obviously has a lot to do with it. That's a really good defense, and that's a really, really good defensive front. So
They're
there were
very
some
good
times
team,
where,
I think.
yeah, it's a really good team. But Brandon Coleman did not have his best game in pass protection.
No.
Now the end is really good. Highsmith is really good, and I think Trent Scott did a good job against T.J. Watt in pass pro. But in the run game, I think you missed Andrew Wiley for sure. And some cases it was just. Sometimes it was just results, he's just a better run blocker. Sometimes it was a matter of there was one play where you could tell there was some inexperience between Bates and Scott. And I think Scott was a little bit too quick getting off, instead of Bates had a little reach block on a defensive tackle who probably weighed about 350. Well, that's a hard thing for a tight end to then get him off. Well, Scott's got to kind of give him some help. But it's that's where an experiencing, how much help does this guy going to need for him to get to that reach block and successfully execute it? But the timing was off. They hadn't worked together and it failed and it gets stopped on a 3rd and 2 for no yards, right? So little things like that would happen. Hit the other play, Bram, that was, again, that little thing. Cosme even pointed this out on himself. He called himself out about this after the game on that quarterback draw on the last drive. He's I knew what the guy was going to try and do, going to come up and kind of come around, and he didn't set the way he wanted to, the way he knew he should. And had he done that, Jaden Daniels is off to the races. It's wide the hell open, and there's a deep safety that if he makes, Bram, he's inside the 20 with a chance with a one-on-one miss to maybe go. It was that close. That's how close they were. And that doesn't change, I don't change my opinion of them based on what happens Thursday either. I think this is a good team, but I do think the thing that I would fall back on for them is one, I think Jaden Daniels, if that was going to be Jaden Daniels' worst game, which, he's still, it's okay.
It is to this point, it is.
Yeah. And it's what? He's, and I said this one other time, first of all, I wonder about the cumulative toll on him
100%.
At this point in the season. Physically, all that stuff, and how much of the ribs really bothering him at all? Does it affect anything? But then there were a couple times, on the miss to Zaccheaus, it's good pressure. They moved him off his spot. He has to slide to his left just a little bit, and I think he maybe he hurries the throw a little bit, and that's off, right? So there were a couple things that were just a little bit off. Is that time? We're not used to seeing that from him, but it also shows he's human. And what I know about guys like that is they bounce back. And going into Cincinnati, you knew like, hey, guys like that in these situations make big time plays. And I'm kind of expecting that from him. Now, the difference, like the one thing with Philly, their secondary is really good. And I had Tim McManus, our Eagles reporter, on that. I'm going to run that tomorrow as well on the podcast. But that's the strength of this defense is that secondary. So that's going to be a fun challenge for him and for them. So, but if they can get Brian Robinson back and be able to at least be more multi-threat oriented, that would help tremendously.
I'm with you on the attrition part of this. Like, I kind of left that game the other day going, this team really needs a bye very badly. Like, they just need it. And it's almost like after Thursday, I'm just waiting for Dan Quinn to go, see you guys on Monday, see you guys on Wednesday. Like, you just need a physical break from all of this, especially the offensive line. And Daniels, too. He was a little uncertain at first. And to me, part of that might have been, I don't know if he knew what he had up front with him. Like that was a very different offensive line. Coleman, same thing. Like this is the third time he's been injured this year. Hurt in training camp, unfortunately got a concussion, came back from that. Now has a shoulder issue that he's playing with and getting through, but he got beat a couple of times and he's a rookie and it's a lot. And, we've seen this a million times through the years. Like these seasons get long at certain points in time. And it feels like for the offensive line and for Jaden a little bit, it's gotten a little bit long. Now, the question about him running, that's an interesting one. Is there a little bit of fatigue? Is he a little bit beat up? Is our teams doing things a little bit differently? And I would point this out. I've been waiting for this for weeks because he was killing people on the edge, that eventually they had to run some ends up the field and try to keep the edge contain on him because he's just murdering people on the edge when he gets outside. And secondarily, what I've noticed and it really stood out against the Giants. The Giants came into the game against Washington a couple weeks ago, most sacks in the NFL, but they weren't a heavy blitz team. All of a sudden, they were pressuring more than they usually do. And I want to give Washington's protection unit credit. The backs, the line were outstanding against them, like really outstanding, picking up all these blitzes. Jaden in the offense had a really good day. It was the defense that let that game stay close, but they had a really, really, really good day. Pittsburgh, similarly, even with all these injuries, Coleman's a little banged up. The interior of the O-line's a little banged up. They've got their, number 2, number 3 right tackle playing here against TJ Watt. They still brought a lot of pressure. So if I'm Jaden and I'm Cliff and the reality seems to me that the message has come here that we've hit the middle of the season and these teams have decided they're going to come after him. And therefore, it's going to be unavoidable that he's going to be hit more than he has been probably previously. And we'll see how they adjust to all of that. But that's the signal I'm getting. Defenses who don't necessarily need to blitz or bring pressure are doing it against this team because I guess that's the way they've decided that this is the best way to try to handle him.
Well, I think a lot of it too, obviously, there's a couple of things with quarterbacks who run against that Steelers defense, 3-4, right? First of all, he had 0 scramble yards Sunday, first time all season. So when Robert was the quarterback here in 2012, they loved that zone read. The first game, they really didn't run a lot of it, or one of the first games was the Steelers game because of 3-4 defense. And it's really hard for a quarterback in the zone read to really be a threat because you're facing athletic defensive ends. It's just the numbers are tougher and the ends are the ends are a lot more athletic. And so it's difficult. So I don't know that teams may want to do a lot what the Steelers did. It doesn't mean they're going to be successful with it.
I agree.
And the other thing is
the Giants didn't. The Giants have a really great front. They brought a ton of pressure, more than they usually do, but Washington picked it up. Running backs, Rodriguez, Eckler, McNichols, they were outstanding along with the line in that game. This one, it was a little overwhelming. And I'd want to hear from the coaches as to why Pittsburgh was better at it.
Yeah. And part of it is look at who's rushing like that. And I know the Giants have that. But this is with TJ Watt, it's just different. And they have good interior push.
Hey, listen, I hear you, but Dexter Lawrence has been outrageous this year.
I know that. Yeah. No, I know that. But this is still that's a really, really good defensive front. And I feel like they're probably a little bit more disciplined as a defense overall. But they did. What I will say, Bram, is I'm curious to see what the Eagles do, what teams do in the future. Because listen, the key is to keep him in the pocket. Not that he can't hurt you there, but he's more dangerous. We can hurt you in or outside the pocket. Like if he has to operate in the pocket, listen, man, he's just a couple throws away from having a really good game against them. But they did a good job of containing him in the pocket. No team, the Giants couldn't do that. They blitzed him, but they couldn't do that. And the Buccaneers blitzed him, and they couldn't keep him in the pocket. The Steelers did, and that's a credit to them.
So I just want to talk to the coaches and figure out what was going on there because, but I'm just saying trend-wise, the message is out here. Yeah, they're coming after him. And it's unavoidably he's going to get hit more because they're just going to bring pressure. So I want to see how they adjust here. Does that mean more run plays? Does that mean more quick screen plays? Does that mean get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker? I don't know. So I want to see how they adjust to all of this.
Well, me too. I think that's a good point. And the other thing is like those screens have not been working lately. Nope. So that was a big part of their game early. And we'll see where that goes. But again, like even with all that, the plays were still there. And they know it, and they were close, and it wasn't always on him for sure, but there were drops, there were missed throws, there was a missed block, and if you can execute better, if you execute better, there's no reason they can't have a really good game offensively on Thursday night, but it is like listen, anytime you have a new quarterback, like a young quarterback, the key is how do you adjust, and again, for him, it's just hit your throws. And I have one thing I know with him is he will hit you give him those looks consistently, he will hit them consistently. Doesn't mean every time. So,
I mean, we've learned this, like, when he's healthy and healthy enough, the free rusher thing, he jukes these people out of their shorts. So that's a mistake. And he gets out on the edge. He's going to kill you. He's faster than he looks. Like, I mean, that's the most amazing thing. He runs faster than he looks. And then if you rush 4 against him and he gets a clean pocket, he will skewer you. Like this goes back to, he looks nothing like a rookie. Like he doesn't play like a rookie, but I'm just getting the message from everybody else. This is what's coming. And, he's going to make plays. They realize this, but they're coming to hit him now. And so I want to see what Cliff and company do to try to protect that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, and you brought this up too, what Pittsburgh did well, their ends went, typically with the running quarterback, you don't want to go 10 yards upfield because you create gaps, right?
Right.
They were going 10 yards upfield and there were no gaps because they were able to pinch the tackles and the interior was getting enough push. And with that extra rusher, I mean, they sent 19 times 5 or more rushers.
Yes.
Their previous high for the year was 11.
Yes.
11.
Well, the Giants did the same thing. The Giants are not a blitz-heavy team. They were getting sacks with their front. They set more pressure than any other point in the season. So this is the adjustment. Let's see what Washington does to try to handle it. It's up to them. I mean, and then the other side of the ball, there's clearly adjustments that need to be made as well. I mean, this is not all, roses. I love where their record is. I love how competitive they are. I love the chemistry thing is real. This quarterback's real. I love how they play. But we're at the point in the season where they're playing a really good team Thursday night. Let's talk about how to beat them. And there are self-scouting things that need to occur here. We've seen the signal through the noise from the other teams and adjusting to Jaden through the half of the season is this. On defense, I think there are a couple things that Washington really needs to shore up and not just get Marshawn Lattimore out there.
Right. And just to close the blitzing, it's going to be curious to see it. Philly has not blitzed a lot. So their high this year is 13 times against the Buccaneers. The last 4 games, they have blitzed a combined 18 times. 4 games, 18 times. So if they start sending more, that's exactly so. Just for people listening, pay attention to that, and and then see how they play off it. The Eagles do have that good secondary, a young secondary, and then I like if Terry's matched up with Darius Slay. I like that matchup for him. Last year they hurt Darius Slay with motioning to late stacks or bunches, but Quinyon Mitchell is playing really well on the other side, so that's going to be a challenge. But so maybe they won't feel like they have to, Bram. But if you want to keep them in the pocket, I think it's something that absolutely is worth watching for sure. So what would be your biggest concern then for the defense?
Obviously, the rush defense is still really off here. I mean, they're bottom 5 in the league in rush defense, and look who they're playing this weekend.
Right, exactly.
Saquon Barkley is going to cross 1,000 yards rushing in this game. I mean, he only needs like 9 or something like that. And, we know what his history is with the Giants, and he's just been killing it. I actually would in the early part of the season when their offense wasn't doing what they're doing now, mainly I think because A.J. Brown was out. And I think they were still kind of getting their sea legs with the new coordinator. Barkley was the saving grace for their offense. It was just racking up yards for them. In recent weeks, the whole operation's working again with Hurts scoring at will and Barkley being just a big part of this thing. The rush defense obviously is troublesome at best. And there were a couple other things that I noticed, about the defense with Luvu, who I love, how they move around and try to be a chaos agent and but there were times where his pressures were mistimed. Off of like the Giants specifically, it was noticeable where he was coming off the edge and they were running the ball right up the middle on him. So I don't know if that's they saw what was coming and they audibled or had the right play into it. So I would ask a question on Washington's pressures. Are we self-scouted enough that we're fooling anybody? Because it's second straight week. Same thing kind of happened where some of these pressures were a little bit mistimed. Some of the sacks and the pressures they got on Russ was him holding the ball, what I thought a little bit too long. And I don't want to take anything away from the Commanders, who have done really well to kind of generate a pass rush. But I've kind of just noticed that the last couple of weeks that teams are hitting them when they're bringing pressures around the edge and going right up the middle. Is that a self-scouting thing that people are figuring out where the pressure is coming from? And that's just an open question I would ask to the coaches. And I could be off base on that one, but that's just what I've seen a little bit, that I think they're playing really aggressively, really well at times. I think we know what their weaknesses are. So, everybody's got them. We know what theirs are, but it's those moments where I go, okay, are people seeing what they're about to do before they do it?
Yeah, and I think the one thing, and for me in this game, it is obviously the run defense for sure. Because if you don't stop Barkley, then you're not going to stop him. So it's one of those games where you what do you want to take away? Well, you got to take away Barkley, and then you're going to have to hope that you can get to Jalen Hurts. Like Hurts certainly in the past has had a propensity for hanging on to the ball. I mean, shoot, there were plays last year when Washington played them. I'm like, if the Eagles had lost, this is a horrible play by Jalen Hurts or a horrible missed opportunity by Jalen Hurts, but they won, so it was irrelevant. And I think one of the best things the Eagles have done has been to devote more to Barkley and use him as a centerpiece of the offense and not their pass game. But I would want to put the pressure on Hurts to have to make those plays, because we've seen, he can be inaccurate. He can, if you have to make him throw more, he can, turn it over more, right? So, but if you can get them in a good rhythm, if they're in a good rhythm and he only has to throw 20, 25 times a game, they're going to hurt you and they're going to make big plays. But my other concern then, Bram, would be until Marshawn Lattimore gets out there, just those, here's the thing. They're going to run some double moves at you. Don't bite. And guess what'll happen on Thursday?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's clearly not going to play. I mean, they haven't
said
that. He's not going to play. I don't think he is. I'd be shocked if he actually.
No, I meant until he gets out there in the future, not this game.
Yeah.
Not this game.
Yeah. There's just two people I want to bring up because they've just been the last couple of weeks and really the last month for Dante Fowler.
Oh, terrific.
What deals they have gotten on him and Jeremy Chin. They said Joe Witt Jr. said a couple of weeks ago in his press conference, he said, we need to send Chin more, which was a really interesting signal of you're going to see more of him. He's had 25 tackles the last 2 games. He has been all over the place. He's been in the backfield. He had a pick. He had the fumble recovery on the one the other day. And Fowler is having when he was in Dallas, I looked at him because, played him, a couple times a year. He was a really good kind of wily situational player who was dangerous, but I never thought this when they signed him. 8.5 sacks is like 3rd in the NFL. He's number 1 in tackles for losses. He's having beyond a career year, and he is shining out there and has been just a disruptive force for them that I think is just worth pointing out, because we're sitting there nitpicking. There are a couple people on that defensive side of the ball that are on 1-year deals that are just killing it for this team this year.
He is definitely one of them, and I'm glad you brought it up because in my little 5 things I think on Thursday, he's one of the guys I'm going to talk about, and just explaining maybe why he's in the position he's in now to do this. So I agree with you. I think he's been terrific. And, it's funny because we were sitting there talking before the season about who's going to bring the edge pressure. Now, I liked, so way back when I thought he would be a good guy for this team to pick, right? And they ended up picking Brandon Sheriff, who obviously had a very good career here. But I've always kind of liked Dante Fowler. So I've always kind of followed his career. And he had one really good year with the Rams, but a lot of, like you said, situational stuff. But I like Dorrance Armstrong, right? And Cleveland Farrell. I think they're fine ends, right? But where was the pressure going to come from? And I like the way they've used Fowler, and they move him around with he and guys like Louvu. You have some quickness. It's funny, Bram, because you hear people the term he hunts sacks, and I think that with Fowler, you watch him and he's hunting sacks, and I mean that in a very good way. Sometimes it can be a negative connotation. For him, it's a very positive one. He is going to get that, and he knows where the guy is. So I've been very impressed with him for sure. So
yeah. He's been great. Chin has really come on.
You're right.
Really come on
the
last couple of weeks. So all of these little mini bets that they made on all these veterans that they brought in here to reset this roster, many of them have been real hits for them. And those two really, really stand out to me over the last month for sure.
For sure. And I agree with you. And but it is there's still parts of that defense to become more consistent to where they need to go. And Juan says, and I agree, Jalen Holmes has done a nice job as a backup for sure. I think Sheldon Day, the last couple of games, has done a nice job.
Sheldon Day last game was all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too, when you look at him, he's not a huge guy, but I would say he's not a tall guy for an inside guy, but he uses that leverage to his advantage. So he gets up and into your pads quick, and he's pretty quick. So, Johnny Newton, despite what happened on that fourth down, kid's going to be really good for a while. So there's definitely parts there. They need Lattimore out there because that's a piece that they absolutely need for sure. And that's where I think we'll close it on this one, because, with Brown and Devontae Smith, and we haven't even talked about Jahan Dotson, who made a circus catch a couple weeks ago, but hasn't really been a big factor for the Eagles. And I think
he has 128 yards for the season.
Yeah, third round pick. So
before you go, we can't let you go without this. Come on. You're not going to mention being honored by the team for your 500th game the other day? Come on. Give the people what they want, John. Give the people what they want.
Well, I did talk about it after the game because I wanted to thank the team. It was an unbelievable day and moment for me, my family. And we talked earlier today, it's hard for me to really adequately express how it felt or how overwhelming it was, because all you do out there, you're not out there for attention. You're out there to do your job. And you and I are both the same way. We're not hot takes people. I think you try to approach it with a certain level of professionalism, just to be just professionalism. And that's always been to me what it's about. So I appreciate it. I don't even know what to say because, there's as you know, what it means to me is there's been a lot of hours I've spent out at that facility. And I also, and it's funny because how many times we've tonight, you leave there, it's dark and it's late in the season and whatever. And I walk to my car and thinking, I have spent my career covering football. How bleeping lucky am I? I mean, I can't tell you how often I feel like that. And this is, I have the same enthusiasm for this job that, no, it does not include preseason. But I have the same enthusiasm for the job that I had when I started. And I will tell one little thing on the preseason. So in a minute, but I have that same, and I think you do too. That's why, when I listen to your calls, you hear that enthusiasm, the passion. I haven't lost that. Monday morning, I'm up in my office around 6 a.m. watching that game again. And you spend hours and hours and hours doing it because you want to learn and because you want to communicate what you learn. And it's just, there's a lot of hidden hours in there that for all, that our families know about, that we're not curing cancer. We're not important, but it is our job. And so you take it seriously. but I feel privileged and lucky to be doing this, and for a fan base that is passionate and that passion is getting back again. So the good thing, Bram, is the future looks pretty good, and I look forward to that. But speaking of, so somebody asked about the preseason. So my first game I was going to cover, Bram, was in 1994 preseason game, and you know this is what you want. I am anxious as hell for this game, even though it's a preseason game. I would be at games like I'd look at the press box like that's where I need to be. That's where I want to be. So I wake up that morning and I have this really bad cramp in my side. I'm like, oh, that's not a good sign, but I'll just lay in bed a little bit longer and hopefully it goes away. And it didn't. So I'm like, I've got to go to the doctors. And my wife's at work. I had to drive myself to the doctors. And I'm in there and she's like, you got to go to the hospital right now. So it was my appendix. And she tells me that. And honest to God, I got tears in my eyes. And she's like, oh, it's not going to hurt. You're going to be okay. I'm like, I don't give a shit about my body at this point. I am so mad that I'm going to miss that game because this is what I've worked to be in position to do. And I don't want anything to take away. I don't want to lose that opportunity. So I kind of feel like, and my wife always says, like, that night I'm in the hospital bed, drugged up with a yellow notepad, taking notes, listening to Frank Herzog and Sonny and Sam on the radio, trying to follow along. But that's how much I wanted to be in this spot. And I'm so happy that I'm still here doing it. So thanks to everybody for the well wishes, Bram. And, you played a part in this too. Like the best thing too, is all the colleagues that we've met out there. There've been a lot of great people that we've all worked alongside, you and I, and you're one of them. And so like, I don't know, so many positives, so many, but anyways, thanks for bringing it up.
So let me see if I got this right. 1994, 16-game season. At game 32, you had your last 7-2 season until this year.
I know. How about that? Yeah. And I think they're in a little bit better spot now. Like, because that was.
You are a survivor. Holy cow. I grew up here. I love them. They're in my blood. They win, lose, draw. It doesn't even matter. But you're not even from here and you've stuck it out.
Well, but I think that also helped me. But also, here's the other thing. I'm from Cleveland. I know pain. So I had no problem covering pain. But it's funny because they put my face on the scoreboard. And I'm like, well, if they put my individual record on there, I'd have been booed because it's bad. It's bad. I've seen a lot. The other joke is if they had made the damn playoffs more, I'd have hit this number years ago. So
that's true.
It is true. But
so here's the 500 more. You can do it.
Yeah.
If you're waking up and you're even after all this time, you're waking up, you get your coffee and you're doing like what I'm doing. The second I hang up with you, I'm getting ready for the game. It's all football season. Then you're a lifer and you're not going anywhere.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Listen, there have been opportunities. I'm not going. Like, I like what I do. It's funny because I told Adam Peters one time, like, yeah, it's so relaxing for me to get up in the morning, early in the morning, get a cup of coffee and turn on the game film. He's like, well, I'm glad it's relaxing for you because it's not for him it is. But it is. I like Bram. I sit there and like, Mondays or Tuesdays, half the time, like we'll get on the phone and talk about football for a half hour, or I'll talk to Logan Paulson, or I'll talk to some other coach or whatever. And that's all you do is you're talking football. Like, even when they were bad, I'm like, if the worst thing in my life is that I covered a bad football team, I've had it pretty damn good. And, and again, like the fan base, it's like, you got to put it in perspective because I would have other reporters saying, I feel sorry for you. I'm like, I'm getting paid to watch this. Like, what sucked is going to games in December that didn't matter. Like that sucks. Like, we're reporters. You want to maintain objectivity, but you're human. Like nobody wants to go to a bunch of bad games. Like you want to go to games that matter. That's what's fun about covering.
Since you mentioned it, they honor you and they lose. Oh boy, I don't.
Yeah. Maybe I probably should have known once they put my mug up there. I was like, probably not going to go well today because of this guy. But no, it was. I mean, like I said, I can't tell you how much the people saying stuff on Twitter, colleagues, everybody, like it's been overwhelming, and you don't feel like you deserve it because it's just like we're just out there doing our jobs.
Yeah.
But it was very, very, very nice of what the team did. And I'll tell you, like, the one who said to invite the family was Dan Quinn. It was his idea. It's like, why don't we invite his family? And, my wife pulled that off. Nikki Javala, a lot of them helped pull that off. Sean DeBarbieri. I mean, like, it was so many people. I mean, you guys had it coordinated too. I mean, which I had no clue. And I'm sitting here clueless. So I was like Mr. Magoo walking around with all this stuff going on around me because I had no clue. And, that's what made it special. And it will always be a highlight for me. That day will always be a highlight. And it's like, it was overwhelming.
All right. Good.
All right. That's it. That's all I got. Let's get some more. And like, I don't want to go anywhere because again, we're covering football. Like it's really, really good. So
well, that was Tell the Truth Tuesday. Let's get to Game Day Thursday.
All right, Bram. Well, thanks a lot, Bram, and thank everybody for hanging around. And I apologize for starting a little bit late. I will be back on Wednesday with Tim McManus, who covers Eagles for ESPN, and start talking more about this game. And then Thursday with my 5 things I think, wrapping up the game after Thursday. Here we go. Talk to you next time.